You're listening to the Well Led Podcast, a place for professionalism to meet imperfection. I'm your host, Kate Johnson. Each month, alongside longer conversations and my own reflections, I want to make space for other voices. Short contributions from multiple leaders, practitioners, and thinkers. I believe hearing a range of perspectives deepens how we understand what good leadership really looks like. When possible, these other voices will be from the leaders and thinkers themselves. And on other occasions, I will share notes and research from others to provide you with fresh perspectives and insights. This month, we're exploring vulnerability, and in this episode, you'll hear a brief reflection from my colleague and past Comfy Chairs guest, Kim Rohr, sharing her perspective on what may prevent leaders from being vulnerable and why choosing vulnerability matters. I've also compiled a handful of quotes and excerpts on the subject, different experiences, different perspectives, one shared focus on how vulnerability allows you to demonstrate care. Let's begin with a few research insights from Gallup. In their State of the American Manager report, they outline the finding that great managers possess 5 standout talents. Among these is the ability to build relationships that create trust, open dialogue, and full transparency. These are the managers viewed as being open and approachable. And this has a direct impact on the workplace experience. Employees who responded positively to survey questions about being able to talk to their manager about non-work related issues and approaching their manager with any type of questions are among the most engaged members of the workforce. In addition to these engagement matters, Gallup has studied the question, what do people need most from leaders? And their findings: hope, trust, compassion, and stability. By my lights, this tells us that people need leaders who bring humanity to work. In other words, leaders who value vulnerability. In The Best Leaders Aren't Afraid to Be Vulnerable by Janice Almadeke, we read, over the years, we've learned that leaders who create the space for true vulnerability build psychologically safe work environments in which people feel welcome to be themselves. We've learned that when people are willing to be authentic at work, they're also more willing to take creative risks, share their perspectives without fear of consequence, and make valuable contributions that can only be expressed within a culture that values trust and inclusion. But what prevents us from being vulnerable at work? What do we lose when we avoid vulnerability? Let's turn to Kim for her thoughts.
Hello, I am Kim Rohr. I am a veteran people leader, got over 15 years of experience leading people, HR, workplace teams across a variety of tech companies. And today I am a consultant focusing on HR storytelling and strategy. Think of it like the intersection of leadership coaching, employee experience, and communications and marketing. And today we're talking about what prevents us from being vulnerable at work. Something that I've seen across my years of experience, regardless of the company, stage, size, age of employees, et cetera, is there's still a reluctance from leadership to demonstrating vulnerability. And when your leadership is not demonstrating their own vulnerability, it doesn't create a space where employees feel safe being vulnerable. And I'm not even just talking about bring your whole self to work kind of vulnerability. I mean, even in terms of business results, if we talk not even just about personal vulnerability and we talk about professional vulnerability, when leaders give examples like not wanting to share negative responses from an employee feedback survey or not wanting to share undesirable business results or the fact that goals were missed or things like that, if leaders are sweeping those things under the rug and not sharing them openly, that too is a signal that we can't be vulnerable. We have to be perfect. We can only share the wins. We can't share the things that are challenging to us. And I think, people bring their own previous workplace trauma to whatever job they have now. And who's to say what exact specific thing is preventing each one of those leaders from being vulnerable about their successes and failures. But when you don't have that, you really lose an opportunity for collaboration and for teams to be stronger together. A lack of vulnerability means that everyone is relying on themselves to be the strongest and to kind of, it's like a fend for yourself environment. Whereas if you're not avoiding vulnerability, if you're allowing people to be candid about things they need help with, or things where they're struggling, or things where they messed up, then you bring more space for your team to lift each other up and to bring their unique strengths to the table and have a team that's balanced and diverse in terms of their operating skills and their abilities, not just their personal vulnerabilities, which that's a topic for a whole other conversation. Um, so yeah, I think vulnerability in your work, in your professional environment, is really, really important. Um, and it has to start at the top. It has to be demonstrated by leaders in order for individuals to feel like it's safe to fail.
Kim put this so well. When we avoid vulnerability, we miss opportunities for collaboration. I have 4 quotes to share as we close this reflection. First, from Brené Brown, who has transformed our understanding of vulnerability. Vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. It is the source of hope, empathy, accountability, and authenticity. If we want greater clarity in our purpose or deeper and more meaningful spiritual lives, vulnerability is the path. Therapist and author Stephen Russell wrote, "Vulnerability is the only authentic state. Being vulnerable means being open for wounding, but also for pleasure. Being open to the wounds of life means also being open to the bounty and beauty. Don't mask or deny your vulnerability. It is your greatest asset." And from Madeleine L'Engle, a personal favorite, "When we were children, we used to think that when we were grown up, we would no longer be vulnerable. But to grow up is to accept vulnerability. To be alive is to be vulnerable." Finally, from poet, philosopher, and speaker David Whyte, "The only choice we have as we mature is how we inhabit our vulnerability, how we become larger and more courageous and more compassionate through our intimacy with disappearance. Our choice is to inhabit vulnerability as generous citizens of loss, robustly and fully, or conversely as misers and complainers, reluctant and fearful, always at the gates of existence, but never bravely and completely attempting to enter, never wanting to risk ourselves, never walking fully through the door." You've been listening to Other Voices on the Well-Led Podcast. These reflections remind us that leadership is shaped not by a single voice, but by many across roles, experiences, and contexts. If this episode was useful, you can support the show by following or subscribing on your preferred podcast platform, or by sharing it with someone who's navigating similar questions. We'll be back next Tuesday for a deeper conversation with guest Peggy Mark. For updates on future episodes and resources, you can join the newsletter anytime at 123ltd.com. I'm Kate Johnson. Thanks for listening and for making room for other voices.